This presentation was recorded at the 2015 ANZICS ACCCN Annual Scientific Meeting.
I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Neil Orford. Neil's an intensive care specialist from Geelong in Victoria. I note that he's on Twitter, Facebook. I couldn't see the LinkedIn bit. But when I put Neil Orford and foam into the Google search, there were a number of interesting sites that came up that I probably can't mention. So I think you need to be a wee bit careful sometimes about the acronyms that we use. And he's going to talk to us about his work, I think, with the CritIQ, or whatever he wants to talk about.
That's better. So thank you. We could rename this, Is the Internet Making Us Dumber, but Think We're Smarter? And that's spoken from someone who, as you'll see, I like the whole area. So I was asked to talk about, I am going to talk about foam in the critique view. And so to do that first, I guess, for those of you who don't know, Critique is a website that was born, I think, 8 years ago as a resource to help Australian and New Zealand intensive care trainees pass the exam. And to probably deal with some of the issues that are missing in our current education, or back then, which is isolation, being able to interact with each other. It's grown a lot since then. It now does a journal club, echoes, VODs, pods, like everyone else. It is subscription-based. There's 50 units, departments worldwide. There's 4,000 registered users. And it's in its 4th iteration in terms of the website. And for those of you who use it, you'll know that we have struggled in the last 6 months with the current iteration. And so it's been an interesting journey. So we've got these guys who are the other media, who are an English company, redoing it now. So there's been some good things. We've learned a lot about software development and software companies, and that they do speak a very different language to you, and are very different thinkers. The change in what you can do with a software, with a website and design has been remarkable to watch. It's really fun because you just get to do whatever you want. And we've seen a lot about social media and learnt some lessons along the way. But there are a lot of other people who are experts at this, so it's nice to be able to talk about it. I can't just give a talk about what Critique's view of foam is, because I'm a lot more than Critique, and even though there may be websites with pictures of me with foam, not that there aren't, I promise. Not that I know of, anyway. These are really, my views are influenced by a lot more. I'm like many of you, or all of you, I'm a health professional, so I'm an intensivist in 2 units. I've got a website, I'm the director of a unit, so I've got an institution and a Department of Health who I deal with. I go overseas with an Open Heart Foundation every year. They use social media, internet, and crowdsource. I'm a father of teenagers who are just basically, I think that's all they are, is sort of zombies on their phone. So I have strong opinions about that. And I've also, this year, I wrote an opinion piece in The Age that had a big social media presence, and that was a very different perspective for me, to have quite a personal interaction. So what's foam, or FoamEd? I just put that up, not because I want you to particularly read it, but it's a great description. This is from Life in the Fast Lane, a great online resource from New Zealand. And they kind of describe it well, that it's collaborative, it's interactive, it's sort of evolving, it's fun. It doesn't say fun, but that's what they mean. It's multimedia. And they've got a simple, easy to achieve objective to make the world a better place. So if that's the goal of foam, then we've got some big shoes to fill. So what does it look like beforehand? What's the old model? So we all grew up with this. So we had the senior clinician, the sort of heuristic learning, trial and error, the people you trained with who were wise, who'd seen a lot of things or impart that knowledge to you. In the last 20 years in particular, we've had the sort of explosion in evidence-based medicine with sort of wise senior academics. And now both these people, and it's been an arm wrestle, and it's been interesting to watch, and I think EBM won in the last couple of rounds. But they were all got to where they got through a long, slow process of building credibility, track record, working hard. So there are good things about that. I think we've ended up in a pretty good spot where we've got a large body of rigorously collected information to help guide us in what we do. And maybe it's created a map with some clearer paths, but there are lots of areas that aren't clear. And maybe that's where the sort of, clinical, the art of medicine still comes into it, the bits that aren't defined by evidence that you still make day-to-day decisions. There are problems with this. We've heard in previous lectures that they're all men and they're all, that maybe there are gender inequalities. It is a bit slow, and we'll get to that later, that's a good and a bad thing, but it's slow. This progress is slow. It's not interactive, and there are access issues. If you don't work in some of these hospitals prior to online education, or if you didn't have access to these institutions, or if you didn't read the journals, you probably would have missed out on a lot of this. So it's not perfect. And people still, I think, felt a bit isolated. There are lots of trainees, junior consultants out there who, if they weren't working in these sort of institutions or knew these sort of people, at times in their career have felt very isolated. So what does it look like now? Well, it's very, very different. There's still the senior clinicians and the academics and the institutions, but there's been an explosion in online information. And some of it's free, some of it's not. Life in the Fast Lane, the intensive care network, going all the way to SMAC. That's an incredible change in how we're interacting with people and education. Twitter, we can see the advantages of Twitter. It may be that you get to see a little bit more of what's going on in a conference you're already at. If you're sitting here and you're sick of listening to me talk, you just look at the Twitter feed from the other sessions. And if they take pictures, you can see what they're talking about. That's probably good. We're all connected to each other. And it's also made the traditional providers change how they interact with you. So, all those journals now have got really cool, well, not all, some of them are terrible, but some of those journals have got really cool websites that you can interact with and get stuff from. So I think that's all good. But maybe there are downsides. Maybe not everyone thinks it's good. These young people with their internet and stuff, maybe they're evil. Clearly I'm young, so I'm just referring to myself. So to look at, is this a good thing? Has Foam achieved its objective of making the world a better place? I think we have to look at what was missing before. So it was a bit slow. It was a bit non-interactive. There are access, maybe gender issues. There's this sort of loneliness, isolation issue in a lot of industries. I do think there's another issue which will come to about translation and open-mindedness. I guess the first question is, has it made us any happier? And I always said no, because I've got teenagers and I thought Facebook was evil and Twitter was evil and it was ruining their minds. That might not be true. So there's this, to my great luck, this came out 2 weeks ago, which is the latest edition of the What Makes Us Happy, which is an Australian Unity Deakin University study of, I think it's about 15,000 Australians they've been following for around 15 years and measuring happiness. There are no p-values. It's just, I don't know how they measured happiness, they probably made it up. But just work with me here, okay? So they identified 3 things, and you don't have to read any of that, I'll just put it there so I could talk about something. So relationships, financial control, sense of purpose. So financial control, just out of interest, wasn't wealth, it was just not being anxious all the time about being broke and how you're going to balance it. So that's one thing. I don't think online education can help you with that unless you make a very successful company. Sense of purpose, you've all got that. You're in the health profession, so we get a free kick from the world about what we do. Relationships. So relationships matter, and there's a lot of stuff out there about isolation and loneliness. Men who don't get married, as we all know, are lonelier. Women who get married are lonelier. Go figure. And these guys, for 15 years, they've been recording it, and they look at things like the Bali bombing, the Queensland floods, stock market collapse, the effect of happiness, how it goes up and down. That was my statistical picture, that one, just, to prove that there's something there. They also looked at social media And they're suggesting that social media has improved the happiness of teenagers for the first time in decades. So that really surprised me. And there's other stuff about people who are online and more. And this is across a whole lot of different groups. And so maybe there is something good here that isn't nothing to do with education. And it is that phone and online education and social media is just connecting us and making us feel less isolated and a bit happier. And if that's all it does, that might be a good thing. If it does nothing more than that, maybe that's enough. But I guess we want more from online education. We want it to be good for education and good for the practice of medicine and the care we deliver. So there are good things, and we've said them. I think it does. It probably has forced us to re-look at how we engage. You can get more access to more things. There's a vast stream of information coming past us that you can dip into. There's these conferences that are different. So maybe that's all good. I had to, do my own study. So as you saw this yesterday from Sarah Young and 2 days ago and Lucy Mondra, this is an issue of representation of women in intensive care conferences, boards, everything. So I did my massive prospective observational Twitter study this morning and found that 60% of tweets at this conference are from women. So maybe we're single-handedly dealing with gender bias through social media. There was a non-gender sort of one there. I didn't know where to put them, which is, ANZICS itself. And that's a big player, that one. So that's just gender neutral, maybe. Are there risks? So there are, and I think this is the most interesting bit. And people write about it. And this is a really lovely article. It's written in The Guardian about how the web distorts reality. So we know that we're influenced by cognitive bias, and we know that we're biased. And philosophers forever have commented on the inability of humans to deal with reality and to change all the information we get in just to fit with our existing beliefs. And that exists without the internet. They call it, it's a great word, infoxication, which sounds again like a funny website. But so they may have got it a little bit wrong, but it's information intoxication. So there is this massive stream of information constantly going past, that you can access through Twitter or however you access information on the internet. And most of us are just sampling the bubbles that come up to the surface. We're not diving very deeply into things anymore. So, and the stuff we sample, because we're human, tends to be people who have the same beliefs, whatever, our friends, our networks, as us. And so there's already a bit of bias creeping in. So all we access on the internet is the stuff we already believe in. And that's been shown. That's not me sort of talking about it. The other side of that is that the internet is changing what we view. So these very clever algorithms that sort and rank the information and it presents to you based on what you put in, and your networks and your Facebook friends and what you say do present you information that fits your bubble of beliefs. So it's possible that our bubble of belief and what we are presented is getting smaller, not just by our own behaviour, but by the internet's behaviour as it tries to make us happy. So I think that is a downstream effect, a downside. So it is possibly ironic that with so much information readily available, we might be becoming less knowledgeable. And they say, and they talk about it in this article and others, that if we had accessed all the information available to us at the time of the global financial crisis, that was readily available online through all the information, it wouldn't have happened if we'd analysed it properly. So that sounds like I'm against the internet. I'm not. I think it's exciting, it's fun, it's enticing, we're connected. It's, we don't have to talk to each other anymore, we just Twitter each other. That's really good, and we're sharing more. But there is a risk, I think, that we're going to lose the ability for slow change and to have new ideas, to be open to new ideas, and to watch things go from an idea over years and time to a change in how we practice or think. That if we're not careful and we don't plan differently, that will just continue to sample for the service of the things we like. Thank you.